A lovely good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and personally and officially I would like to welcome you to Mount Sochi Hotel in the city of Blantyre. Those watching us on Times Television, and there are also some other people listening to us on Times Radio, but there are also other people watching us on our social media platform, Times 360 Malawi. I would like to officially welcome you to this particular event put together by members of the academia as well as the Anti-Corruption Bureau. We're going to have a public lecture tonight which is being titled Understanding the Role of Ubuntu in Dealing with Corruption in Malawi. As I've earlier stipulated, my name is Yanko Seunda. There are a number of high-profile people here present, including the SCB director, Madam Martha Chizuma, who's here. Let's just give her a round of applause for coming through. And of course, we also do have a person who's going to give us the public lecture this evening. He's a resource person, Dr. Ista Jamu. Another round of applause for him. There are a couple of things that we ought to do tonight, but basically the idea is following what is actually being referred to, as you can see on your far end to my left. There is something in Chichewa, a poster actually written in Chichewa, which reads, Nsanamira Zandondomeko Yachiwiri Yolimbana Ndizi Pupu Malawi. Its short form is NAX2. So following that introduction of that particular document, there are a number of pillars that have been established just to support that particular document. And one of the key persons taking a lead in such a policy is the academia. So technically what is happening tonight, we are trying to spark a conversation, but being sparked by members of the academia to try as much as possible to understand the role of Ubuntu in trying to curb corruption in the country. The basic understanding is that it is only when we understand and we will fight corruption that is actually when we are going to make substantial progress as a nation. So without further ado, allow me to invite to the forefront Bishop Adinafe Kalimba to give an opening prayer. Thank you.
Let us pray. Almighty and ever-living God, we thank you for this beautiful evening that you have allowed us to gather together, more especially to look into issues that affect our society. We thank you for creating us in your own image and your own likeness, and that by creating us as such, you gave us the mandate to look into the resources which you have created. We are because of what you have made us to be, and by thinking of our Ubuntu, so we look into issues that affect us and see how that can help us to understand and live in harmony with your creation. For all that is going to take place tonight, we commit all that into your hands, that you lead us and help us to understand that we can only be Ubuntu by living according to your will and your design. So be with us and bless us in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you very much, Bishop Adinafe Kalimba. Just a gentle reminder, we're still living in COVID-19 times, so we're still being encouraged to put on the masks. Excuse me for having it removed because I felt like I'll be more audible without a mask. But as we continue, I made mention that there are a couple of things we have organized just to put across the idea of having Ubuntu as a philosophy to curb corruption in the country. So we'll also have a plenary session which will be led by Dr. Ista Jamu. And among some of the members that will take part in that plenary session include Mr. Francis Masie, Professor James Kamwachari Nkomba, Dr. Robert Chanunka, as well as Professor Jonathan Makuira. But for all of you people watching us on Times Television, as well as some of you that are listening to us on Times Radio, as well as some following us on our social media platform, Times 360 Malawi, quite precisely those following us on our social media platform, it is quite imperative for you guys to take a part in this. So your comments will surely be appreciated, and as the event progresses, we should be able to read some of the comments that are coming through on our social media platform. So at this juncture, allow me to call forth the ACB Director General, Ms. Martha Chizuma, to give our opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yanko. The Vice Chancellor of the Malawi University of Science and Technology, Professor Adles Makowa Malata, who is also our resource person for this public lecture this evening, the Deputy Director General of the Anti-Corruption Bureau, Mr. Elia Bodoli, the Chairperson of the National Integrity Committee, Mr. Jeff Kabondo, the Director of Corruption Prevention within the Anti-Corruption Bureau, Mrs. Mede Pombeya, the Director of Public Education within the Bureau, Mrs. Charity Mpande, all National Integrity Committee members present here, distinguished invited guests, all of us who are watching or listening on different public platforms. This event is being broadcasted on, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome all of you to Mount Social Hotel for this public lecture. This public lecture has been organized, as Yanko has already said, in conjunction with the academic pillar, which is one of the 12 pillars under the National Anti-Corruption Strategy 2. The strategy is a tool to support good governance in Malawi and eradicate corruption through anti-corruption reforms and promotion of a culture that is intolerant to corrupt practices. The strategy recognizes that an effective anti-corruption fight demands that each one of the 18 million of us in this country join in the fight. This is the case because the fact of the matter is that proportionally, corruption benefits extremely very few people. For the majority of us, corruption generally has and continues to cost the quality of our lives. Corruption has and continues to indignify and debase us as a people. Corruption has and continues to kill so many of us. But I guess what is more intriguing is that the most debilitating corruption is unfortunately committed by those who on the surface look like decent people. Those ones who generally want, they do not think of John in Zomba, who lost his life after a substandard wall of a classroom block built by the community out of desperation to send their kids to school fell on him. Or they do not think of Margaret in Palombe, who has to endure mental anguish of seeing a man who sexually assaulted her walking free just because he paid a bribe to a court official. These are people who are in position of power and trust. They put on nice suits, and since we love calling ourselves God-fearing country, they probably have got a Bible or a Quran on their desk, and they listen to religious songs whole day. Some of these even carry with them such honorable and admirable titles before and after their names. The image they give us is that of someone who is diligently providing a service to this country and its people. But truth be told, they are just being corrupt and fraudulent or enabling the same. Some of those people are our relations. Some are our neighbors. Some are workmates. Some are churchmates. And some of these people are us in this room, or those watching or listening to this event on different platforms that it is being broadcasted on. One wonders, where is our Umuntu as Malawians? We have a moral responsibility to save ourselves from the shame that our generation has created and possibly set a much needed standard for the next generation. It is in this context that this public lecture has been organized with the academic pillar of the National Anti-Corruption Strategy to join in the fight against this evil amongst us. I therefore invite all of you to listen attentively and reflectively to this public lecture by Professor Mata and engage further during the plenary. I thank you for your attention.
SCB's Director General, Ms. Martha Kizuma. Another round of applause for her, please. We're experiencing some technical hitches right here, so we're going to take a short break to have that fixed. Right after we have that fixed, I will most definitely come back. So I will surely be back right after this break.
It's about time. It's about time.
Sometimes
stating the obvious
is your only choice.
Times Television.
Times Television.
Times Television is Miss Malawi
Television Station of the Year.
6 years.
6 years.
6 years in a row. And we salute all our viewers
As well as advertisers.
For the unwavering support.
And we ignore all unnecessary noise.
To give you best value
for your money and time.
We rule.
We rule.
We rule the media kingdom in Malawi.
It's about time. It's about time. It's about time.
Welcome back, and of course welcome back to Mount Sochi Hotel in the city of Bunta at an event that has been put together by the Anti-Corruption Bureau in conjunction with members of the academia. And tonight there will be a public lecture that will be issued, of course, by Professor Adresi Maukawa Malata, who is the Vice Chancellor of Malawi University of Science and Technology, MUST. We are trying to understand the aspect of Ubuntu in the fight against corruption in the country. To my far right is our sign language interpreter, Mr. Tamsone Kamalata. There's a round of applause for him, please. Ladies and gentlemen, at this particular time, allow me to call forth Dr. Edista Jamu to introduce the resource person. Dr. Edista Jamu, please.
Thank you so very much, ladies and gentlemen gathered here tonight. All protocols observed. My role this evening, ladies and gentlemen, is to introduce our speaker this evening. And before I do invite the speaker for this evening, let me say a few remarks. And these remarks are meant to introduce Professor Adres Malata. Professor Adres Malata is the current Vice Chancellor of MUST, Malawi University of Science and Technology. She is an accomplished scholar and researcher. She is also an accomplished administrator. Professor Malata is also former principal of Kamuzu College of Nursing, where she spearheaded a number of developments that are noteworthy. Professor Malata spearheaded development of different academic programs, both at KCN and presently at MUST. Professor Malata has spoken at different international and national fora. Professor Malata is an advocate of girls and women empowerment, and primarily Professor Malata's research focuses on maternal and newborn health, quality of care, health workforce, innovation, and technology. Professor Malata is a Virginia Henderson Fellow of Sigma Theta Tau International. She is adjunct professor at Michigan State University. She is a fellow of the American Academy of Nursing. She is a global fellow at a global health fellow at University of California. Professor Malata was awarded a doctoral honoris causa by the University of Oslo in Norway. She is a 2018 ECU Distinguished Alumni and ECU Honorary Award of Doctoral Nursing Honoris Causa 2019 in Australia. Professor Malata, ladies and gentlemen, is going to take us through some understanding of the role of Ubuntu in dealing with corruption in Malawi, an area she is so passionate about, largely because of the effect of, or the negative effects or impact of corruption in the areas that she advocates for. Ladies and gentlemen, let me invite Professor Adres Malata to take us through tonight's lecture. A round of applause, please.
The Director General, Anti-Corruption Bureau, Ms. Martha Chizuma, and OACB management and staff, the Deputy Vice Chancellor of MUST, Professor Jonathan Makuwira, and MUST colleagues, all invited guests, fellow Malawians. Allow me, Madam Director General and fellow Malawians, to start this public lecture by thanking you all for coming. I also want to thank you for tasking me with a noble and yet humbling responsibility this evening to speak about Ubuntu on behalf of academia in Malawi. I want to recognize colleagues from MAST who have been part of the development of this paper. And once again, let me recognize the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Jonathan Makuwira, Professor James Komba, Mr. Francis Masie, Dr. Janunka, and yet I shouldn't forget our two graduates, Madali Tsonyemba and Arthur Mwangomba, who have been part of the team that came up with this lecture. I'll start my presentation this evening by sharing a personal story about Umuntu. So growing up at Nkhoma Mission in a family of 8 children, my father, a retired reverend now, aged 90, and my late mother taught us Umuntu. And 3 lessons are still dear to me. I value them so much. The first was fear God. Second, respect elders. And the third one, amongst many, stewardship. So under stewardship, the theme is, what is not yours, you should not take. For this lecture, allow me to focus on this third virtue. And at the end of the lecture, you may decide to forget everything I've said, but I beg you to remember one thing. What is not yours, you should not take. Chinthu ngati si chako, usatenge ndithu. So Dr. Jeremiah Mgawi was my late brother, who was most charming, intelligent, but was also notorious. So one day, on our way to Blantyre from Nkhoma, we had to pass through Zomba, where the former head of state, the late Dr. Hastings Kamuzu Banda, was presiding over graduation at Chancellor College. So our parents left us in a vehicle as they were attending the event. I want you, audience, to focus on the bread and see the hole in the bread. Because we were hungry as we waited. But Dad and Mom did not give instruction for us to eat the bread. My dear brother Jeremiah, may his soul rest in peace, knew what to do. So he started eating the bread. And so we didn't know. We were seated there in the vehicle, chatting, not knowing that Jeremiah was actually eating the bread. So when our parents came back, we complained about being hungry. And my late mother picked the bread and said, you should have eaten bread. There's bread here. But she only realized that actually there was a hole in the bread. So alas, Jeremiah was in trouble. You know what a normal parent would do that time, 20 years ago. You eat something without instruction, you have to be punished. We have never forgotten this story. As we think about him, we think about, if it is not yours, you don't take it. And you have not been given instruction to use it, to eat it, you don't eat it. That's Umuntu. The children of today don't have those values. They'll pick anything at any time, and parents don't even care because we think we have everything. But these basic virtues are what actually contribute to what is happening in this country. So remember at the end of this presentation, if it is not yours, don't pick it. So in Norway, all children are actually taught never to pick anything that doesn't belong to them. If you bring something home that is not yours, parents will ask you, where did you get it from? Today, children bring things in our homes and we don't ask where they got them from. So I decided that as we start this presentation, we look at definitions of corruption because perspectives differ. And as we were putting up this paper, we also realized that because perceptions are different, we seem to have developed a thinking that money only is involved in corruption. But corruption goes beyond money issues. So different authors there, misuse of social resources or public authority by a public official for personal advantage is one definition by Ackerman. Yet another author says the abuse of power, most often for personal gain or for benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. Another definition. But the World Bank says it is a form of dishonesty, and mark dishonesty there, criminal offense, which is undertaken by a person or an organization which is entrusted with a position of authority. And I want you to mark position of authority in order to acquire illicit benefits or abuse power for one's private gain. So you can see from the definitions that public authority, position of authority, so position of authority can actually be at grassroots level, where you are a chief, you are a leader, you are even a woman's leader, you are a youth leader. So position of authority is very important. But private gain is also another important element. More definitions. So the misuse of public power, office, or authority for private benefit, in that definition, bribery, enforcing peddling, nepotism, fraud, speed money, embezzlement, all these concepts are defined by Houston and Bryan, 1999. Abuse of office for private gain by another author. And finally, a public official is corrupt if he accepts money or money's worth for doing something that is under a duty to do anyway. So you are supposed to do that work anyway, but you get money. That's another perspective. But remember what I said earlier on. It is beyond money. Many activities that happen in our society, corruption can take place, and in different forms. So what are the causes? And I know that I'm already speaking to the converted. We all know what causes corruption. So corruption usually happens because of people striving for economical survival, scarcity of resources. Sometimes people say low salaries. But what is key for us to know is that corruption is rooted in the opportunities for its breeding in the society. So there must be opportunities that people look at. Lukewarm attitude by law enforcers, and I've seen we have lawyers here, even police. These individuals, if they don't do their work well, they can encourage corruption. But also, other element is personal greed and dishonesty. So there are times people will be corrupt not because they don't have much, but just because they are greedy and also because they are dishonest. However, another element is about code of ethics. If you don't have code of ethics in your institution, and perhaps you have code of ethics, but not implemented, not enforced, that's a breeding ground for corruption. There's another element that's about culture and institutional factors. nepotism, and strength of family ties. There are people who are so close that they would rather get their relation into a job because they think if they get somebody else they don't know, then they are not being fair to their family. You know, when you start thinking about all these issues, many times we point fingers at other people. But I think it's high time each individual looks into their own life. Absence of transparent financial institutions in a system can be another cause of corruption. And of course, deficiency of knowledge among the community members of what constitutes corruption provides a fertile ground for corrupt practices. And I do know that ACB has been carrying out educational activities because I think they know that there are times that people don't know that that practice is actually corrupt. They may think it's normal. So we need to create an opportunity for the public to understand what is corruption. We talk about it every day, but perhaps the elements of corruption may not be clear to the audience. Now, coming to here, Malawi, I know a survey was done in 2013. I think some of the causes that were identified include poor reward systems, low remuneration, and of course greed came up in that report. So economic conditions keep coming up. So certainly poverty is an issue, and weak political competition or weak political structures. So audience, please note that corruption is not just about an issue for Malawi. In Africa, in Asia, North America, all over the world, corruption is a challenge. It is a global enemy. And I want to share with you this evening that corruption can happen anywhere. So whether it's in business, in government, in courts, in media, even in our own churches, civil society, across all sectors, whether it's health, education, agriculture, so all sectors you can think about tonight, corruption can happen. And corruption can also involve anyone. We are all prone, whether they are politicians, whether they are people in private sector, because many times we talk about public sector, but also in private sector, whether it is government officials, whether it's public servants, community leaders, church members. So in other words, anyone can be involved in corruption. What is most important to note is that corruption mostly happens in the shadows. So you may not necessarily see things happening on the exterior, but behind the scenes, corruption adapts to different contexts and changing circumstances. So it evolves. And so it does look at when rules are changing, legislation is changing, even with technology. When changes are happening, corruption also changes. And it's always important then to note that we need to be dynamic. We cannot use the same approach. The approach that was used 10 years ago should not be the same approach today. Because even with technology, with COVID-19, everyone now is on Zoom. So people are so corrupt on Zoom that they will say to you they are listening, and when you say so-and-so, are you listening? And there's nothing, and probably they are making a cup of tea. They could even be eating sima or rice in their home, and you are sitting there thinking everybody's attending that meeting. That's how serious corruption can be. So for Malawi, what are we saying tonight? Corruption has become so pervasive in our society. But before that, I want to share with you this thought from my team at MAS. National anthem was actually developed and it cites 3 national evils: hunger, disease, and envy. Corruption is more evil than hunger and disease, for it aggravates both of them. And the question my students asked me this week was, is there a need to amend our national anthem and add corruption on the list of national evils of Malawi? I had no answer. But I think it's a question that particularly those of us who are older now need to reflect on. So I want us to sing national anthem, but when we sing this national anthem now, let's look at it as a prayer. The request we are making to the Almighty God, for those of us who are believers, is that God should bless Malawi. Who doesn't want a blessed nation? I'm sure each one of us wants Malawi to be different. We want Malawi to make progress. We want Malawi to be a developed nation. Malawi 2063. All of us desire a peaceful nation. We want Malawi to be peaceful. But then in this prayer, we are also saying, God, defeat our enemies. Gonjetsani adani atu. Njala, ntenda, nsanje. Our students have asked me, should we add Katangari? And they're asking, should there be an amendment? Because we need to be praying. So when we are praying about Njala, praying about Ntenda and Nsanje, shouldn't we be praying for Katangari? So I'll pause there, and I want all of us to stand and sing the national anthem this evening as a prayer. We'll not talk about Katangari, but I want all of us to reflect on this prayer. So the composer, Mr. Sauga, was inspired, because not many national anthems are prayers. People talk about anything, but we're so blessed to have a national anthem that was composed by someone who was inspired. God bless Malawi. So let's stand for 2 minutes, and Dr. Janunka will lead the national anthem. But today we're not just singing it because there's an event, no. Let's sing it as a prayer. God bless Malawi. Muchichewa. Sani Malawi, musungentendere, gonje sani adani onse, yalantenda sanje, luzitsani mitima yatu, kuti tisaope, dalitsentsogoleli nafe, ndimai Malawi. Zikomo, please be seated. So corruption flourishes because conditions are ripe for it. The more you create conditions for corruption, whether it's individuals, whether it's governments, whether it's political parties, whether it's families, corruption will flourish. And I think as a country we need to reflect on this. Have we incubated and fertilized corruption in this country? So our argument for this paper tonight is that integrating Umuntu is a quest to address corruption in Malawi, and this is paramount. So there will be many efforts, and I don't believe one effort can help curb corruption. But as academicians, we do believe that Ubuntu is paramount. So Ubuntu and moral capital as foundations to root out corruption in Malawi. Moral character traits of Ubuntu include unity, peacefulness, goodness, openness, resilience, hardworking, spirit, remember Kamuzu, responsible behavior, responsiveness, solidarity, loyalty, honesty, self-control, and discipline. So any group of people, any nation that embraces these characteristics, Ubuntu will be embedded in that nation, in that community, in that family. And Ubuntu presents a communal mindset for ethical decisions, where individuals, community, and the world are connected. So in other words, in a country, in a community where there is Ubuntu, people are well connected. Virtues of Ubuntu can facilitate efficiency, teamwork, initiative, so innovation, productivity, integrity, and of course people avoid corrupt practices. So Malawi needs good people, and we have been called for decades the warm heart of Africa. So we are the warm heart of Africa. And I was reflecting this afternoon, there must have been a reason why people decided to call us the warm heart of Africa. I don't think it was us saying we are the warm heart of Africa. We do that now. We tell people we are the warm heart of Africa. But I'm sure there was some experience that some individuals, some people came to Malawi, they felt the warmth. Where is that warmth now? People that are warm actually are people with Ubuntu values. Ubuntu is a moral capital that creates resilience, mental stability, and of course it's just for any human being, but also social harmony for individuals. It is a moral capital. It creates resilience and also causes mental stability. We have a lot of mental health issues today, but if Malawi embraced Ubuntu, half of the problems we have could be solved. Ubuntu can be used to create collective moral identity as well. So when people look at Malawi as a nation and people see Ubuntu, that moral character, moral values in us, they know that this is a very well-connected community. And individuals who exhibit Ubuntu values are said to have moral capital. And what are the advantages? Of course, one advantage is that it perfects the whole human being. So an individual who has Ubuntu, who has moral capital, is a very well-rounded person. And virtuous workers, so this is for workplace. If you have people that have Ubuntu, you will see professionalism, less litigation, less fraud, or no fraud at all. And also people tend to work together and contribute more to an organization. So currently, some Malawians who are professionals lack moral capital, although they have the technical competence. So they have degrees, they have diplomas, they have PhDs, they're professors, but they don't have moral capital. So moral capital is moral power because it can be used to persuade other colleagues to seek what is good. So if you have a few individuals that have got moral capital, they should actually influence other people within the organization. And so people know, let's avoid what's wrong and do what is right. So investing in moral capital and Ubuntu will ensure that individual professionals have moral competence in addition to technical competence. So you'll find that when you are recruiting in an organization, you'll be looking for both. Someone who has a degree, they passed very well in college, But on that interview panel, you should be able to tease out moral values, moral competence. If you don't, normally you realize when they have joined your organization, and then you see that they can do the work, but half the time they're on WhatsApp, they're on Facebook, they don't even greet people in the office, they are even in a bank, and they greet you because it's a must there. They are ticked if they don't greet you. They'll be greeting you when they are looking down. That's moral incompetence. And note that we are also talking about grassroots level. Because many times people think it's about offices, but these things happen even at grassroots level. So we are arguing in our paper that Ubuntu should be a moral brand for Malawi. All of us, in our homes, in our communities, in our churches, in our institutions, in this nation, Ubuntu should be a moral brand. Because we know what is happening with corruption today in our nation. But if we make Ubuntu our moral brand, we can recover that warm heart of Africa perception. We need to regain it. We need to recover it. Embracing Ubuntu values can help in curbing corruption in Malawi. And of course, as we all know, this will lead to socio-economic development of our nation. Malawi Agenda 2063. And also, Ubuntu is moral capital for moral power. Any nation that has got moral power makes progress. And I think we've seen other nations that have changed. You can actually say that particular nation, there's progress. It's because of moral power. What are we recommending as I finish? There must be moral capital investment at all levels of society, including household level. Your son, your daughter, should start learning Ubuntu as early as possible, even before they go to kindergarten. When they are a baby, Ubuntu should start. When they're primary school, Ubuntu should be taught. When they go to secondary school, they should know about Ubuntu. And of course, higher education, our universities, this should be a must. Why am I saying that? If your son does not greet visitors in your home, when visitors walk in, they are on a laptop or they are on TV, they don't greet visitors, and then you bring in your visitors and they raise volume, and then you tell your visitor, let's move to the other room because if we get this remote control, he will cry. That very same son of yours will be a student at College of Medicine. And your expectation is that College of Medicine should give them Ubuntu, should help them now to start behaving well. It's normally late. The college will do its best, but a lot has been lost. So my plea in this paper is that let's start inculcating the spirit of Ubuntu in our children when they are young, as early as possible. And teaching them they can't take anybody's thing if it doesn't belong to them. Teaching them they need to smile and greet people and look at people in their eyes. Not be on TV when people are walking into their homes, because that's what they'll be doing when they work for the bank. We should adopt Ubuntu as a moral brand for individuals, of course, as I've said, household, committees, and national level. So Ubuntu should actually be part of what we do. All institutions of learning should introduce mandatory teaching of ethics and ethical principles of Ubuntu, as I said earlier on, at different levels. So don't wait until they go to Chancellor College or they go to Domas College. Let's start at home. Parents are responsible. Grandparents are responsible. So if you're a grandparent, when they come into your home, don't spoil them. Because they say, no, when they go to grandpapa will accept anything. Let's not do that. We are destroying this nation. There's also need for strong, robust democracies where all sectors of society have collective responsibility. ACB should not be the only institution responsible for corruption. All entities, all institutions should promote Ubuntu. And of course, we should enforce code of ethics, conduct for all public and private institutions. In conclusion, in order to prevent corruption, we should embrace the values of Ubuntu and moral capital, as I said earlier on, as early as possible. Kindergarten, but I would say beyond kindergarten, is at home. And the youth of this nation are a very important group. Yes, we should never leave anyone behind. Agenda 2063 of African Union says, don't leave anyone behind. Sustainable Development Goals of the UN also say, we will never leave anyone behind. So for Malawi, Ubuntu will not leave anyone behind, but the youth should be in the forefront. Because if they get Ubuntu now, this country will change. Prevention of corruption is paramount if indeed we are going to sustain ourselves as a nation to achieve aspirations of Malawi Agenda 2063. Ubuntu culture must be essence of a value system that underpins the commitment at all levels to eliminate corruption. Making Malawi a corrupt-free country is possible, but it requires collective responsibility that begins with each one of us. Osati au, o enau, kuma ine, kuma inoyo. Ubuntu philosophy says, I am because you are. And because you are, therefore I am. We need each other. And I want to encourage those of you who are listening or are in this audience to buy a book by Professor Bandawe of College of Medicine on Ubuntu. Stand up for what is right. Even if you are standing alone, in that organization, in that home, in that institution, in our own country, if it means standing alone, stand up for what is right. Thank you very much for your attention. May God bless you. May God bless our country, beautiful country, Malawi. Thank you.
I believe we can do way much more better than that. Another big hand for Professor Adres Malanta for such an inspiring lecture. Quite very insightful. I was listening to it, and there are a couple of things that I actually got from that. I'll shortly go into it to try as much as possible to bring out an understanding that I've derived from what she has actually answered. But as I'll be doing that, I'd like to ask the people that we agreed prior to come through and set up for our next session. Of course, just in case you're joining us, you're watching us live on Times Television. We are also on Times Radio as well as streaming live on our Facebook page at Times 360 Malawi. One of the things that I've actually learned from our lecture is that what is not yours, perhaps do not take. And I was thinking to myself, in the course of listening to this, what she had actually organized, of the many things that I've actually taken that are not necessarily mine. And I believe most of us, in the course of listening, it felt that deep in our hearts that we have taken a lot of things that are not necessarily precisely ours. It seems like we are so comfortable living in a rotten society where we feel like the aspect of corruption can be embraced by pretty much everyone, and we are so entitled to take part much as we feel like it is deteriorating the progress of the economy. Earlier on, I said it is past 50 years since the inception of independence in the country. And little did we know that along the way we are also going to face multi-party democracy, a principle that we embraced about over 25 years ago. Around the same time, we had come up with a blueprint that was talking about the type of vision that we were to reach and quite live by the year 2020. The very same blueprint was actually taken by other countries, had it implemented, and we have seen some substantial progress in those nations. But where are we as a nation? We have made little effort because we decided to embrace more of corruption and less of coming together, collectively working together, young people, organizations, government entities, as well as other private entities to try as much as possible to curb corruption. Now, we do have another blueprint, Vision 2063. How many do know about that one? I saw some sort of delay. I'm going to ask that question again. How many do know about the Vision 2063? And its content. Okay. But one of the principles which is actually being embraced in such is to try as much as possible to curb corruption. We saw with the presence of the new government, the Tonse Alliance administration, they had come through to say that one of the principal ideas is to try as much as possible to curb corruption. And not too long ago, we saw a debate being sparked upon the appointment of Ms. Martha Chizuma, of course, as the new Director General of SCB, considering the type of history that she also had made as the Ombudsman. We saw that she really did a lot. A lot of people were actually brought to book. A lot of cases were actually investigated. Some of those are still being investigated right now. A big shout out should surely also go out to some non-governmental organizations such as Human Rights Defenders Coalition for coming up with the whistleblower initiative to encourage people to report cases of corruption. Now, we are not only focusing on the principal cases, major cases, the minor ones also do matter in our society. We are living in a society where we do have a whole pie and would like to, share it equally. But if you be so greedy at it, and if you forsake the moral capital, which is actually Ubuntu, then there won't be resilience actually being created. And that is one of the things that was actually discussed at length by Professor Adres Malata, of course. And I think she has wrapped up her lecture by saying, moral capital is actually moral power. So, on this particular note, I just wanted, with a round of applause, I just wanted to find out how many people are so geared to make sure that, moral capital becomes moral power. With a round of applause, those that are for it, please make a round of applause. At this particular time, we're going to go into something different. Of course, this one will be a plenary session. And would like to discuss at length the principles that have been brought forth by our key speaker, of course. And from the plenary, we do have Mr., as I'll be calling out your name, I would like you to be walking to the front and, of course, occupying the chairs that have been organized for you. We do have Mr. Francis Masie, who is an expert of ethics. A round of applause for him, please. We also do have Professor James C. Kamwachari Nkomba, is an expert and a professor in finance and corporate strategy. A big hand for him. Dr. Robert Chanunka, also join us, is an expert in culture. A big hand for him, please. And of course, we do have Professor Jonathan Makwira, who is an expert in developmental studies. Another big hand for him. Now, considering that we are challenged technical-wise, what will be happening as soon as we get started, if you have been accorded a chance to speak, I would like to humbly ask you to embrace this podium and speak, and when you're done, you surely get back to your seat. But ladies and gentlemen, allow me at this particular time to introduce the host of this plenary session, Dr. Edista Jamu. A round of applause for him, please.
Thank you very much, Yanko, and thank you very much, Prof. Malata, and all guests gathered here this evening. Indeed, we are about to get into yet another exciting session where our discussants, our panelists, will delve into what has been discussed or presented by Prof. Malata. The session is such that we expect questions or comments from both the audience that is here and the audience that is here virtually. The panelists have already been introduced. I take it that Yanko is handling our online viewers and listeners, and therefore we'll be taking questions from here and from our online platforms. Maybe I need to make sure that our panelists have mics, because they'll be responding to questions. I'm not sure whether they need to be here. They could be seated wherever they are, and a mic could be used right there. As we are ascertaining that, Yanko has already summarized some of the issues as presented by Professor Malata. And I think there's no harm in repeating some of those. Pachichewa timanena kuti mphini yobwereza ndimene mawala. So the key message this evening has been, what is not yours, please don't take it. So Prof. Malata has talked about quite a number of things that included the causes of corruption, Ubuntu as moral capital, and has provided some recommendations. One of those key recommendations is that all learning and teaching institutions at all levels should consider the teaching of ethics and ethical principles of Ubuntu as a mandatory subject. I remember back in the days growing up,